All right, so for this first demo, I'm going to keep it short and simple. All I want to do is take you for a walk on the general layout of the program, including how to set up your viewports and customize them to suit your needs a little bit neater, introducing you to some standard primitives, the use of the control panel, and a couple of hotkeys to get you started. Just enough to be dangerous. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, when you first open 3ds Max, the first thing you're going to notice is this 4-port viewport. Each one is active as long as you have clicked on it, and you can start to maneuver within those. Now, if you're unsure what viewport I'm actually looking at, you've got a couple of handy tools. For example, this view cube right here can kind of help you understand like the orientation of the grid simply by clicking on it and dragging it around. Now, the perspective view is sort of my preferred view to work in. However, I can't really work in that exclusively. I'm going to need a little bit more precision, and that's why orthographic views like front, top, and left are really important. However, there's just such little screen real estate here when I want to be doing most of my modeling. So the very first hotkey I want to introduce to you is the toggling a full screen for your viewport. So have the viewport that you would like selected, which you can tell by its highlight around it once you've clicked on it, and then hit Alt-W. And then you can see that the whole thing just sort of filled up the whole screen. And that is really nice. I want to be able to operate with most of the screen real estate. Now, if you want to go back to those other views, just go ahead and click Alt-W again, and you can toggle between the layout, the standard layout of this four viewport grid, or just a single view that you'd like. Now, this will work with any viewport that you have selected, so make sure that you have the one you want to fill up your screen before you hit Alt-W. Okay, next thing I'd like to show you is how to kind of get a little bit more fancy with your viewport setup here. Now, if you go over here on the bottom left corner of the screen, right, you can see this little quad 4 setup. That's a default setting. Right above it is a little arrow you can click, and then you can select a different standard view layout. One of my favorites, though, is this large column with the second column of the 3 little ones on the side. And now we've got something that I can really get behind. I can have multiple views of my 3D models while still operating in most of the screen real estate as my primary viewport. Now, if that might not be like enough for you, I'll head back to this 4-port viewport. You can customize this by simply clicking and dragging these bars to create a more customized view that will work for you. And I mean, play around with it, see what fits. Now, I do not want that viewport. I'm going to set it back to kind of what it used to be here. Actually, maybe go over here. Now, what I really want to do, though, is I want this large area to have my perspective view. There's a couple of different ways we can do that. And we can go ahead and click this little top right down here, right click, and drop it down to click perspective. And then I've got a perspective view. And that's pretty handy. You'll notice, though, when you have a right click hover over the word perspective and you've got all of these options, there's a little letter right next to it. That's actually the hotkey to be able to go from any particular view to another one. So this says top. I got top selected here. I want it to be perspective, and I know that all I got to do is hit the letter P now. So let's go ahead and try it. While I have the viewport selected, I'm going to hit P, and voila, I have my perspective view. Okay, so if we were going to go ahead and get started actually 3D modeling, we would need to know where to go. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the top right corner of our screen. And what you're going to see here is the command panel. And if you hover over it long enough, you'll even have a little prompt that says, hey, this is the command panel. And within that, there are 2 major points that we will be toggling between, and I want to make sure that you completely understand that they are different, and sometimes that's why you don't see what I see, and vice versa. So right here is I've got the Create tab, which is where we'd start, and underneath here we have our standard primitives, which is where we're going to just kind of stick for now. We're not going to go changing this up at the moment. Let's just play around with what we have here. Next is the Modifier tab, and within that is where we'll have all of the different filters of things that we apply to our actual 3D model or our mesh. Now let's head on back to the Create tab, and within that I'm going to create a simple box. And to start doing that, I'm just going to click Box, and I'm going to drag and drop it on my grid. There we go. We've got kind of a nice little, that's nice, that's friendly. Okay, now you'll notice that on the bottom right corner of my screen in my original perspective, it's shaded, whereas up here it is not. Well, first thing I want to do is I actually don't want the perspective to here. I'm going to put, I think, top view, and I'm going to do that by selecting the viewport and hitting the letter T, top. Great, that's fine. It's still shaded and this one is not, and I want my my cube that I made here, or my box, to be shaded. So to do that, if I go over to the top right corner of my keyboard, you'll see F1, F2, F3, and F4. F1, well, that will take you to a help page for Autodesk. So sometimes if you accidentally miss and you see this pop up, it's because you hit the letter F1. Now, F2, it changes highlighted faces when you have them selected, which we don't have any now, so hitting it now it makes it kind of hard to see. But F3 is whether or not our mesh is shaded. So I want it shaded, so I'm going to hit F3. Okay, and that's how we get started 3D modeling in 3D Studio Max.